Good evening, everyone. My name is David Freese. I'm the mayor of Tonganoxie, and welcome to our meeting tonight. I'd like to open up this June 17, 2024 meeting of the Tonganoxie City Council. Ms. Huntington, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mayor. Mr. Partridge?
Here.
Ms. McCutcheon? Here. Ms. Stevens is absent. Mr. Donnelly? Here. Mr. Dale?
Here.
Thank you. Would you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Council, with your indulgence, I'd like to move item 10.1, public recognition of life-saving action at Tonganoxie Water Park, to the next item on the agenda. Is that good with y'all? Okay. Mr. Shoup, you want to take it away? Please. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor, City Councilman, my name is Darren Shoup. I'm the manager of the Tonganoxie Water Park, and it's an honor to be in front of you to recognize an event that occurred on May 28, 2024. This is an acknowledgement of the life-saving measures that occurred at the water park in May 28, 2024. The City of Tonganoxie would like to extend our deepest gratitude to the swift and decisive actions taken on the 28th of May 2024, which undoubtedly saved the life of a patron at the Tonganoxie Water Park. We are proudly thankful to Roman Staples, whose prompt response and skillful execution ensured that the vital life-saving measures were performed when needed the most. In moments of crisis, his professionalism and compassion shone brightly, embodying the highest ideals of service and care. The impact of his efforts cannot be overstated, as they not only preserved a life, but also provided comfort and hope to those who affected. With that, we would like to present this life-saving award to Roman Staples.
On behalf of the city, please accept this life-saving award. Appreciate it. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Sorry, got a little choked up.
Mayor, I'm sure they're all thrilled and would love to stay for the rest of the meeting, but I think if you wanted to give them an option, maybe take a minute or two to clear out, they might be happy with that too.
Yeah, feel free to take off if you need to. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's awesome. Thank you.
Great job.
That's an amazing story.
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We need to hear more good stories like that instead of crappy stuff we hear.
No kidding.
Where people actually jumped in and helped and not became part of the problem.
Right.
That's awesome.
That's great. Okay, we'll continue with the agenda in order with the approval of minutes from the regular meeting dated June 3rd, 2024. Are there any questions or concerns or conversations about the minutes?
I will move to adopt as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Partridge. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McCutcheon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item 3, consent agenda, review of bill payments, where we review the bill payments from the previous period. Do you have any questions about the bill payments, council?
I make a motion we approve as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Dale. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. On toward old business. Review information about possible changes to city regulations for fireworks sales and discharge. Before we get too much into the weeds on this, I brought this up and I think it was a bad idea. So in retrospect, and then talking to our chief of police, So we can skip this, or we can just go ahead with your presentation, Mr. Brakovich.
Mayor, it's totally up to you folks. What I think, just to recap for those folks that might not be familiar with it, the discussion was, since the 4th of July holiday this year fell during a certain part of the week, that our existing city code didn't really allow for the discharge of fireworks to occur on either a Friday or Saturday, I believe. Would we take a look at that? And so what staff did prepare is what it would take to make a modification to the city code to allow that to occur this year. We'd be happy to ask the city attorney to, or staff that has submitted, I think, into the agenda packet, the procedure for that. But if there's no need to do that, we're good with that as well.
Anyone object to moving on? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you for working on that. I appreciate it. Review updated public spaces Wi-Fi service proposal from Mid-Continent Communications. Mr. Brakovich?
Yep, thanks, Mayor. So you'll probably recall that the city received 2 tranches of funds during COVID. The first was CARES Act. We used a portion of our CARES Act money to offer free public Wi-Fi. You probably recall during that time, access to certain buildings was limited, and folks were encouraged to go meet in large outdoor spaces, which still isn't a bad idea. And so we allocated about $165,000 of our original CARES Act funding towards doing 2 things. One was expanding the Wi-Fi and free Wi-Fi near city facilities, primarily the water park. And then the library, because we have an interesting lease arrangement. The city owns the building, the library board leases that facility from us. And since it was limited access inside the library, we wanted that beefed up Wi-Fi available in the parking lot in case people were waiting to get inside the building. And then in conjunction with the Tonganoxie Rec Commission, we looked at purchasing equipment that was physically mounted onto existing structures in Chieftain Park to provide that. So that $165,000 that was allocated, that purchased some of that equipment and got us originally about 3 years worth of monthly, I guess, availability through Midco. And so now we're about 3.5 years into that agreement, and Midco would like to start billing differently for that. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Porter, because one thing is we didn't feel like, we felt great that when it was kind of a necessity because of the pandemic situation, that it was a good service to provide. From my position, I don't feel like that's something that the city should solely pay for, because it does benefit 2 other organizations that are funded outside of city funding. And so Mr. Porter's had some discussions with those, the Rec Commission and the library as potential funding partners on that, and he can give you an update on what the Midco proposal looks like. Dan?
Thanks, George. So the proposal you see included in the agenda packet totals an approximate cost of $1,475 a month for the services at all 3 sites identified as the outdoor Wi-Fi availability. That's about $17,700 on an annual basis, a 3-year term, which isn't yet a flexible point in discussions with Midco. It's sort of an all or nothing deal. You can't take out the pool in Gallagher Park, but leave in Chieftain and the library. We don't have that optionality based on the hardware and how it was designed to operate with the networks. One other thing that has been modified, though, and that's based on experience at the sites, is the bandwidth. So it's set up as a 10 gig circuit right now. Midco's proposed to downgrade that to a 1 gig circuit based on their assessment of the spikes in usage based on heavily active days at each of the sites. One area that they continue to be less than able to give us full information is usage. Their sort of statement is that they don't make a business of tracking or tracking well the activities of their customers on paying customers or or customers of their service. They are able to capture a few snapshots, what I would call some sort of brief analytics, but they're not able to give us like in the past month or 3 months or a year, number of users or unique users with absolute certainty. They're also not able to differentiate between someone who drives or walks by a facility, automatically clicks into the network because they're connected before and then moves on. And so essentially the statistics they can give us are limited and probably less than certain to be very accurate or insightful. That's an area that, like George mentioned, we've had discussions with the Rec Commission and the library staff that they have some problems with. I think anecdotally they observe some activity where people are obviously streaming or taking a work Zoom call or watching a movie or doing some sort of activity on their phone or device that shows they're connected, and they might see them there regularly. But they're also not certain that there's a great volume of usage or a great criticality of usage at each of these locations. The Rec Commission in particular has expressed some concerns about the mission of their organization and their goal to promote activity and recreational activity. And what they have anecdotally observed is, again, people maybe streaming a movie or relaxing for an hour or two, not working out actively, not always engaging in physical activity. That's probably not 100% true in the real circumstance at Chieftain Park, but it's visible enough that they kind of see that as somewhat of an issue, that it's not actually promoting anyone to get out and be active. It's just an opportunity for them to be sedentary and use the internet basically in that location. Timing-wise, we're the first board and commission to consider this item. The Rec Commission's going to have a meeting on Wednesday this week at which they will discuss this item. It isn't as big of a budget issue for the Rec Commission because their fiscal year runs July to June. We're obviously in the middle of the 2024 fiscal year, and so is the library. So if we're to incur a cost like this for a 6-month period or so, it is a difficult ask of the city's budget to find unspent funds of this level for the duration of the year. The other component of the 3-year term is also concerning because we're making a decision that'll impact us several years down the road in our budget. And just like the Rec Commission and the library, this cost divided 3 ways evenly would still exceed our cost at many of our other facilities that serve both employees and the public. So the scale of the cost is elevated at $1,475 a month for the service because of the hardware that's in place. It's a little bit more complex hardware and costly hardware than maybe a modem and a router or whatever other equipment you have at a business or a home with the same level of service. So there's a lot of considerations there. What we're hoping to collect is feedback from the City Council about your interest in it, feedback from the Rec Commission and the library to then take back to Midco in short order. They've been patient through the process, but they are requesting sort of an answer sooner than later. And I think we do owe them that, but I do also think they've been paid for the services that they've provided to us this 3.5 years. And it's been a good arrangement, but again, it's up to you all and the other boards and commissions to decide if continuing this is a high priority and needs to be a funded project. But happy to take any questions you have or share any feedback you have, again, with those other boards. They're very curious to know what the City Council think and whether the city has interest in continuing.
Council, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I would comment. I don't know that it's the long-term goal of the city to take care of people's Wi-Fi and over at specific areas. If it's that area, why isn't it the whole city? You're almost singling out who can use it and who can't. That doesn't seem too right to me. You have to go to this place or you can't get our Wi-Fi. So I think it would be in our best interest to let the citizens take care of their own Wi-Fi or their connectivity and move on, or at the very most to only take care of our property.
it would seem that we would need to hear from the rec and the library before we really move forward. Is that the case?
It is. I think they are looking to the council for some guidance as to our level of interest and commitment financially too, whether it be for a third or a lower cost than what's been proposed or none at all. I think that's the feedback they're hoping to collect.
I don't think we want to go it alone. I think Chris
Most
is right.
everybody, in my opinion, has it right here anyways.
Yeah, and I don't know that it gets used much anymore. I think during COVID, it got used a lot just because, you know, places were closed and you didn't really have that access, like the library and things like that. But I don't really see that many people parked at the park or sitting in the park using it or, you know, anything like that. So I don't know that it's necessary.
Cutting it from 10 gigs to 1 gig tells you something.
Right. It's obviously not getting used much.
Yeah.
And we have asked Midco in the past for performance numbers on it. And I mean, we are kind of relying upon what they submit to us. And I think to the best of my recollection, we've had 3 24-hour periods based on usage. Again, for the facility that we do control, the water park, it's a very seasonal aspect. I mean, I guess at best, we're operating there for about 3 months. We do have an adjacent small Gallagher Park next to it, but it gets kind of minimal use for probably Wi-Fi requirements. But again, it was a feature that we provided. Although when folks log on, it's, you know, hey, here's your free Wi-Fi from Midco. And it's like, well, technically, it's not provided by Midco in that fashion, so.
Is the water park already covered, or is this separate from the water park, or is this part of the water park?
So the water park is part of the city's network, and so in terms of operational needs, we're covered. This is what's offered as a free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, let's just say I'm a 12-year-old kid at the water park, right? And I
Yeah.
have a phone, but my phone doesn't have normal data, or it just has Wi-Fi. But my
Yeah.
parents dropped me off, said, use Wi-Fi calling to call me when you're ready to get picked up. Do I need this to make that call? If I'm-
Yes,
Well, then I
yeah,
think
because ours is secured, right?
I think that would, I mean, I do think we do have some kids that go down to the pool, and I know not all of them have phones that have full service and probably depend on the Wi-Fi there. So I do think we're probably getting some benefit there. So I'd support it at 1 gig.
What action are you looking for us? Just kind of a general feel?
Well, if there is support, I'd say from a majority of the council to consider it, maybe an idea of if you're willing to do it at the quoted price divided by thirds, or if you'd like to see maybe a lower price proposed as a counter to Midco. That is feedback I think that's important for those other groups to know too.
Yeah, I'd like to see it at a lower cost, I guess, at the bare minimum.
I think from a administration standpoint, one of the reasons there's obvious timing issues that we have to present it, but next meeting, you're gonna hear budget requests from other community groups, and so we very much viewed this as another community support initiative. And so if you're kind of forecasting ahead and you have a number in mind of what you might consider as requests from other community groups, and knowing what this cost could look like, how would you prioritize that if we're trying to stay under a certain cap for our community involvement? So,
I think that's a good way to couch it, George. I mean, we give $5,000 to the business group, and they have thousands of people here on 2 or 3 different events. We're not getting thousands of people using it. That just doesn't make logical sense in my mind. I'd rather give them $17,000 to get more thousands of people events. You know, the Halloween thing is an example where there's a jillion people downtown in the mayor's tree, and you know, there's activity that's creating, and we can clearly see we are supporting Tonganoxie people. And this one, if it's 100 a year, it's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a guess, because they can't tell us, I understand that. I don't want them snooping around on me either.
Well, again, Mr. John, I would say this, are you having people going down to the water park to stream movies? No, but I mean, I know a lot of families, what happens is mom and dad get a new phone, right? They give their old phone to the kids, but they don't want to buy a phone line for my 10-year-old kid for a lot of different reasons. So I give them that phone. That phone only works as a phone if you got Wi-Fi, you got some way to call using Facebook Messenger, some kind of messaging app. So you probably are having quite a few people at that water park use it to call to get rides or something like that. They're not using it to, they're using it for communication more than they're using it for internet purposes in that sense.
My challenge with that, though, is the costs associated with that.
Sure,
To also include Chieftain Park and Gallagher Park and all the
just
other
the few months
places
that
that
the
nobody
pool's
is
open.
using it.
That's a good point.
And they can, mom or dad can go up to the front desk and say, I'm here to pick up Timmy, and they can call him over the loudspeaker
Oh, man.
and embarrass him.
First embarrassed
And
kid,
embarrass him.
Jake Dale.
We all
I feel like my mom
We
used to
all
just
love-
drive by the pool and yell at me.
love embarrassing the kids.
Yes.
Those are all really good points. They're all really good points.
Yell out the window.
Yep. Jennifer. I'm like, uh-oh, I gotta go, guys. Sorry. I'm almost here.
Yeah, from a staff perspective, we also looked at, is there a way to maybe couple some other needs that we might have as a city? So from just, there's very dark, quiet areas of the park. And, sometimes certain activities occur there. And so we've looked at, what would it take to get a camera system in there? So when we get complaints or issues arise, we've got some coverage of that. And it's just kind of a remote area. And so we have to go to a wireless system. And so we were looking, would there be an opportunity to couple, I would say kind of more of a city-oriented need in wireless camera coverage. And so obviously if it was part of that network, it would have to be more secure and not go through that. And we just haven't had enough time to go through that level of analysis with the city's IT group or PD to see what concerns they might have. But I would say I'm not really optimistic that we'll be able to couple those types of needs with this type of a system.
Well, and if it's something that we drop now, is it something that we could get later if there was some sort of need for it?
The library had that exact question, and the answer is likely the cost would be pretty
More.
intensive. So of the $175,000 we provided at the beginning of the pandemic, Midco's claim is that about $80,000 of that went into engineering and installation of the access points, essentially hardened outdoor access points. So the odds that we would ever provide it, again, on a limited site-by-site basis and not part of a bigger project with another funding support area outside of just the city, are pretty low. So once it's gone, it's in all likelihood not going to be cheap to bring
Yeah.
back. But it's not cheap to keep either, because we're
Right.
leasing that, in a sense, the 3-year term.
Any more input, council? Do you feel like you have a clear?
Well, I think from a staff, our goal would be to communicate back to our 2 other potential partners if there is either a consensus or a majority of the city council that would be committed to exploring this further. And so I've heard comments for both, and maybe a third for a more neutral position. But I don't think we need like a formal vote, but I think if there's 3 that want to move forward, I think that would give us an ability to communicate back to the 2 partners that, the city is interested in exploring this further.
Did you have something, Chris?
I will clarify that I am in support of the overall project, but not for $1,475 a month. And if the other groups feel like it provides some value to their services, then great.
Because it sounds like the rec is saying they're out. almost, is how it was kind of sounded like from what Dan was saying. Does that sound fair?
They've expressed the more negative opinion about it, yeah.
I think it's an important service at the library. I don't see it as such at Chieftain Park.
I would pass.
And I would just add real quick, on the rec commission, I think an additional concern, and Dan, if you said this and I missed it, I apologize, was that when we look at the coverage map of the equipment, it did not include the new dog park. And so what would it take then to extend coverage into that area? And are they gonna hit us up for more equipment? And really, how does any of this really work? Is this a lease of equipment? I mean, what are we paying for? Is it a subscription service? And a lot of those details are just still kind
If
of
I can't go
floating.
live on TikTok at the dog park, then
I don't want it.
Stop building.
no.
Throw it out the window.
That's on a private account, right? Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll move on.
Just going downward fast,
We've been here for a few hours, Chris.
along already.
Give us a break.
While we're under old business, was there anyone who signed up to speak tonight?
No signups, Mayor.
Okay, thanks. Okay, moving on to new business, Resolution 06-2401, consider approval of assignment and assumption of West Village Development Agreement. Mr. Bragovich?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. So as you probably recall, we have a development agreement in place for the West Village development. A part of that is because there's public incentives in the deal. One of the provisions within the development agreement is if the developer would ever choose, the original developer would choose to sell the project because of the use of public incentives, that the city council would have an opportunity to review the qualifications and ability of this prospective buyer to carry that project through. So first off, two great things. One, the project was built to the standards we expected, and it's, I'm probably biased, but I think it's a fantastic looking product. And again, as a reminder, kudos to the city council for adopting policies between West Village and schoolyard townhomes. Those are the first new multifamily projects this community's seen in 30-plus years. And I think the demand for that is reflective in the quality of both of those projects. Secondarily, we've worked with the current developer to go through all of their submitted invoices or costs related to the project, because again, they have to be qualifying costs under the RHID, and it's both by the definition of the statute itself and the terms of our development agreement. And so we were able to go through and certify those costs. So I don't think there's any gray areas remaining. And so as far as the determining of the qualifications of the prospective buyer, we have two folks in attendance tonight, Andrew Mullins and Lorenzo Dow Mullins, who are part of the group of three. Also Christopher, and I forgot his Fett, with 8 Ventures Group, are the prospective buyers. Anna's had the opportunity to review some of their more confidential documents related to financing. You've got the resumes in front of you in terms of their portfolios of projects they've managed in the past and current projects, and we think it's a good fit. You'll probably remember some of the difficulties we had in attracting developers. There's lots of developers that do 250, 300 units and higher, and it's really hard to find developers that do kind of more sized, scalable projects for smaller communities like us, like the 36 or 52 units. And so their expertise seems to be a good fit for that, for this product as well. So from a staff perspective, we're recommending moving forward with this, but again, it is a right and a provision afforded to you to discuss that and make that determination. I'd be happy to ask Ms. Kristalik to add anything from a legal perspective that either I glossed over or didn't include.
I don't have anything to add, but we'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I should disclose that I disclosed this with staff earlier. My bank financed the construction of the property, and I have had no relation with the borrowers or now the sellers, and no real conflict of interest. And so it was determined that there was no need for recusal, but putting that out there in the name of transparency.
Thank you.
George, would you concur that this is a normal transaction between an initial or original developer and then an end user, long-term investor?
Yes, yeah, we don't have any cause for, or pause for concern on that end.
Anyone else? If not, I'd accept a motion at this point.
I would make a motion, we approve resolution number 062401, resolution approving and authorizing execution of the assignment and assumption of West Village Development Agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Partridge. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Item B, review 2024 citizen survey results. Mr. Brockovich.
Thanks, Mayor. So, thanks, guys. As you recall, we've, as part of our annual budget process, which we always get to do at this time of year in anticipation for what our needs might be next year, we always look for that opportunity to outreach to constituents to provide them a fairly easy way to interact with the city and help us kind of determine what we're doing well, maybe areas we need to improve in, and then a slight difference this year in terms of actually asking participants to rank budget priorities. And so with that, I will try to go through the presentation quickly. It's not working, sorry. There we go, thank you. So again, it's very similar. The platform we use is SurveyMonkey. It actually goes out as an invite to users from the info@tonganoxie.org email. And so the box on the far right shows you that we had about a little over 2,200 users, utility users. And so why we focus on that is those are utility accounts, what water, sewer accounts. And so typically that indicates that they own property in the city. We take this approach to try to avoid just having anybody submit a survey. If they don't live here, it's kind of like, well, thank you for your opinion, but we really want to hear from our taxpayers of what they think is going on. And so to that end, we released the initial one on May 30th. We do follow-ups. This time we did it on June 4th and June 10th, and those go to unopened emails. Again, it's a little far for me to read, but I think 1,300 or so opened them. A few bounced, a few were bad emails, a few people opt out of any kind of receiving emails of this nature. And so we had 241 responses, which is about a 12% return. Again, that's outpacing the typical industry standard of about 7 to 10% on what's considered a cold survey. 25 questions, 24 of them were the typical one we had where they had an opportunity to say they were very satisfied, satisfied, neither satisfied or dissatisfied, dissatisfied or very dissatisfied, and then the one additional question that I mentioned about ranking budget priorities. So the first question is their information. The red circle indicates, and you'll see this on each of the questions, how many of those were actually answered and how many were skipped. And this is actually one of our highest participation rates where people put their name, their address, and their phone number. And it was interesting to go through individual responses in that regard. So first question, and my intent is to roll through this pretty quick, so if you ever want to stop or go back to something, please let me know. Overall image and sense of community in the city, again, overwhelmingly positive. As you can tell from the very satisfied and satisfied components. Place to live, majority of the folks answer this, and again, overwhelmingly positive. Place to work, again, this is kind of what we've seen. It's kind of neutral. We don't know if that's because people enjoy driving away on a daily basis and have employment they enjoy elsewhere, or if it's reflective that they don't have the type or quality of employment they want in this community. But I will say, from the satisfied and very satisfied, this was our highest level of those results that we've had in the surveys that we've done for about, I think, 6 years now. Place to raise children, again, extremely positive. Place where you would buy your home, again, mostly positive. And again, this is a tough question to interpret. Is it house, home, cost of homes? Is it the availability of homes? I mean, we were coming out of a very tough market, probably still in a somewhat difficult market in that regard. Overall maintenance of city buildings and facilities, extremely positive. Customer service, we take a lot of pride, and our staff does a fantastic job, not only at City Hall, but at Public Works. And we talked earlier this evening about how focused both police and fire are on community outreach components. Overall effectiveness of city communication with the public, again, mostly positive. I always use this as an opportunity to remind folks that we've got our YouTube channel where they can watch this streaming that's recorded. They can watch it later. The city did update our website a couple of years ago. We use that for a lot of forward-facing communication. The city itself has a Facebook page. Police department has their own Facebook page. Fire department has their own. In addition to that, we do the 2 annual newsletters in the spring and fall to kind of communicate what's happening, both from a property tax perspective, as well as when in the fall we kind of communicate what happened as a budget outcome. And then in addition to that, even on monthly bills, utility bills, there's a little line where we can put some brief messages, and we use that to communicate with folks as well. But there's always additional room for improvement, but we also encourage folks to maybe pick one of those multiple existing platforms to try to engage as well. Overall enforcement of city codes and ordinances, again, mostly positive here. We got a few neutral and other comments. We've seen marked improvement in this since the city council a couple of years ago committed a full-time resource to this. Actually, our code inspector is working on more of a annual report to give you an update so that you can see what kind of code enforcement efforts take place. I think a lot of times folks don't realize that, well, I've seen grass growing over there, and they don't really understand how notifications and compliance period and getting somebody to court over codes, how that whole time frame works. And granted, if my neighbor wasn't mowing their grass, I would want somebody to do something about it as quick as possible, so it's all understandable. Overall quality, the police department, again, extremely high marks. Fire department, same thing. Public Works department, same, overwhelmingly positive. Quality city programs, again, extremely positive. Maintenance of city streets, overwhelmingly positive. And of course, we've gone through a lot of budget discussions of using that infrastructure sales tax to bolster the existing street maintenance programs that have been in place for years. And I think all of you can honestly go out and say with the straight face that we've touched over 90% of the road surfaces in this community in the last 5 or 6 years. Quality of city water, again, mostly positive. We get a few comments here and there. We've really had no issues. We've had outstanding water quality reports from the state that monitors and regulates that. Some of the previous issues that we had with our well water, a couple of years ago, we changed the filtering agent in those pump systems, and we've really had 0 issues. You folks made a big investment on the booster pump for Smiley Road where we had low water pressure in the area. So some of the negative responses surprised me, but again, we don't offer that opportunity to add any detail. So it could have been somebody that had a bad experience years ago. But again, for the most part, it's overwhelmingly positive. Again, city stormwater runoff. We saw a few additional comments on the negative side here. I think a lot of it related to construction activity that we have going on in the community and just not understanding how regulatory agencies monitor construction sites and how that works. And so we've made some outreach efforts to educate the community on that when they've had questions. Overall quality of the city water park and facilities, great marks there, and it was fantastic to offer the recognition to one of our employees earlier in the meeting tonight. Overall flow of traffic, really great comments here. Really, the things we hear are usually related to school traffic on Washington a couple of times a year, twice a day. Overall feeling of safety, extremely positive, and you recall Chief mentioned a couple of times this evening on the positive marks Tonganoxie gets as one of the safest cities in the state, and I think the last 2 or 3 years we've been in the top 2 or 3. So that's great. Effectiveness of city manager and appointed staff, pretty neutral to positive, pretty typical. Same thing for the city council. Same response for the mayor and boards and commissions. And so this is the one I kind of wanted to get to. Again, how we asked folks to rank these 5 budget initiatives. And one was public safety, one being roads. A third was water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater infrastructure. Fourth was lowering the city's tax mill levy. And the fifth was trails, parks, and other amenities. And so I'm presenting these findings in a different fashion because what SurveyMonkey does in their analytics is we ask people, the top priority is number 1. And so the way the survey was built, if you folks didn't take it, was you couldn't assign multiple things a 1. Once you did the 1, it was ready for you to go to 2, 3, 4, or 5. And so the way SurveyMonkey analyzed that was to give it a cumulative score. And so if we presented it just the way they had it, the best one would have been a 3.26. But that doesn't really indicate how many folks made it a number 1 priority. So the box or the matrix we're showing is the total counts that each one of those got as a number 1, a number 2, a number 3, a number 4, a number 5 ranking. What I did was circle the highest count per. And so public safety as a number 1 and number 2 priority was the overwhelming majority rank 1 and 2. Lowering the city's tax mill levy had a fairly high number 1 ranking, but then it was kind of level as you went from 2 through 5. So really public safety came out as the overall number 1 priority, then lowering the city's tax mill levy, then the water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater infrastructure, then road maintenance, and then trails and parks. Now again, this is 240 folks, 241 that answered the survey. It's not a truly scientific method, but I do believe in this as a tool because we got 241 people to engage. And they gave us an opinion, and I think the way you folks as a policy-making board choose to use this as a tool when you go evaluate budget requests and development of next year's budget is up to you individually. We'd be happy to answer any other questions and in future years if we want to do something differently. I was very pleased that I thought many more people would skip this question because it requires a little bit different brain power than just pick one of these 5 things. Are you happy or not? And but you can see very few folks actually skip this question. So this is the last slide. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have or go back on anything you might want additional detail on, but appreciate the chance to present this to you tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barkovich. Any questions from that?
Good to see 12% participation, and thank those folks for doing it. That's great.
Yeah.
I think it took on average about 3.5 minutes. In our intro, we say we need about 5 minutes of your time, so we came in just under.
All right. Item C under new business, consider adjustment to Public Works clothing reimbursement for 2024. Mr.
I
Porter.
can take this one, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. This item is as a response to a budget request that Mr. Heskett advanced for consideration of the City Council. The Public Works Department is currently provided for each of their full-time staff a clothing allowance on an annual basis. That amount had not changed in many years, and as you can imagine, certain items for workwear or footwear at work have increased in cost, and so a small adjustment was proposed for the 2025 budget. Members of the council asked that the amount just be adjusted by the small amount of the $50 per person, and so that amount is proposed tonight for your consideration by motion. The Public Works staff would value this opportunity and this additional resource, and it is not a budgetary negative impact on our general fund or utility fund budgets at the small amount of the difference.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Council, do you have any questions on this? If not, I'd accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Public Works clothing reimbursement adjustment for 2024 to $300 per employee.
Thank you, Mr. Partridge. Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
City manager agenda, the May 2024 financial report. Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep this iteration of our monthly financial report brief for your reference, but I do want to point out that in May we did collect 2 sales and use tax remittances from the state of Kansas. They've been late. I think George made a good point. They've been late more months than they've been on time thus far this fiscal year. So we'll continue to closely monitor that. Our real only negative impact of that is at fiscal year end in December. So I know cities across the state and their staffs have been kindly reminding the state and their staff of the importance for small to medium cities on a cash basis of accounting to have prompt and timely payment of those funds. And so we'll continue to join that effort without getting on any list of annoying cities in the State Department of Revenue if we can help it. But I do want to point out our budgetary outcome for sales tax. You may have noticed articles in Lawrence Journal World or other newspapers across the state that state sales tax receipts overall are seeing a slight tick down. We are showing a very small gap between our collections thus far in 2024 and our budget projections, but our budget projections this year were some of the more aggressive projections, and in fact the most aggressive projections we've done in several years. So we are not currently foreseeing any negative financial circumstances arising from that, but you can see we're between 4 and 5% below year-to-date straight line budget projections, but that's obviously not accounting for seasonal or just variable rates of return of sales tax, which, if you'll remember from other budget work session slides, is kind of all over the map. We see highs and lows, we see patterns of high and low, but generally we are still seeing trends either stable or growing revenues. So nothing of major concern there. It has been a while since we've done a deeper dive into NAICS code reporting, so we'll probably look to do that later this summer to give you a better idea of what industries are leading the way or maybe seeing some change from prior trends. We are looking forward to the summer's building activity because we do receive a healthy remittance of sales tax from materials delivered within the city limits from outside providers for construction materials and other work-related products that are not exempt from sales tax. One other thing I wanted to point out is in our reporting, we have continued to utilize more of our ARPA funds with the wastewater treatment plant design project with BG Consultants. We're currently looking at funds remaining of $589,748. We don't anticipate that will all be spent by the end of this year, but it is obligated and has been reported as such, so that meets our obligations to obligate those funds according to the federal guidelines for those specific awards. So we are in good shape and continue to make progress on that initiative. Lastly, I think I might also point out as we look at future financial reports, we have added detail to the end of the financial reports showing revenues and expenditures by either category or subcategory of classification. If you all look at those and have a particular area of interest or want a highlight taken into a certain area, please feel free to let us know, George or myself, anytime during or after a meeting, and we'd be glad to direct future financial reports in those areas. But at this point in the year, no negative indicators to report or situations, with the exception of the slight variation in sales tax to our budget projections so far.
Any questions, council?
Yeah, historically, has our second property tax remit been about the same as our first?
Normally, it's just slightly less. We did receive that this month, so it'll be in the June financial report. I think a lot of people choose to pay it all at once, more so than the 50-50 approach that you're allowed to do. We also, with that, have some interesting information. So our RHID districts, the increment gets remitted from the city onto the developer. We have completed that now for our first 2 of our 3 RHID districts that have been created. So we're currently in the base year still of the Stone Creek RHID. But the other 2, we're on the way and remitting them increment.
So that's the last property tax payment when we'll get, is this the one we got this month?
We'll receive 7 throughout the year.
7.
The last one's in December, but the 2 major ones are received in January and June.
Okay.
And so we did get our second major
Do you
remittance.
know how much it was?
I think it was 1.25 million. Some of that goes on to the library.
Right, okay. It sounds like we're gonna be getting more than budgeted though from the revenue then, maybe? Even at 1.2?
No, we should be close to budget projections because the remaining 5 remittances of the year are very minimal, mostly motor vehicle taxes.
Okay. Because I mean, your variance now is 1.251 million. Okay, you're gonna be just a little over. That's good.
It'd be right close to projections. Yeah, we're shooting for that.
On your interest income,
Ballpark.
we're 106% over target, which you expected.
Mhm.
What's your plan? Because that's significant compared to 113% on a $1,000 budget line.
Mhm.
So are your thoughts on budgeting? Because obviously our balances are going up, our reserves are high, and the rates are up. So $80,000 would go a long way to pay for some of the things we talked about today.
That we will project a good amount of revenue next year in the 2025 budget year. We are going to see some decreases in fund balance though for our 4th Street Bridge project, our water tower. Thank you, George. So some decisions with cash balances could really adjust that, as well as the uncertainty of rates. We don't ever like to be aggressive with that expectation. But it is a good outcome this year. It's very helpful.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Nice
Board.
to see interest income up. That was good.
Okay, city attorney agenda. Did you have anything else, George?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem agenda, she's absent tonight. City Council agenda, you have anything, anyone? We did number 1 on my agenda. I need an executive session for consultation with an attorney for the public body or agency which would be deemed privileged in the entire, attorney-client relationship. How much time do you need on that?
Let's do 15 minutes.
15 minutes?
So moved.
8:10.
So, can you read that formally?
I move that the city council recess into executive session to obtain legal advice regarding the city's options after the Leavenworth County Board of Commissioners finding that a recent annexation would hinder proper growth and development pursuant to the attorney-client consultation exception in KSA 75-4319B2. The executive session will include the city attorney, city manager, and assistant city manager. The open meeting will resume in the city council chamber at 8:10 p.m.
Thank you, Ms. McCutcheon. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We're in executive session. Let the record show that no binding action was taken in the executive session. I have nothing further. So, Mr. Dale, do you have anything?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? See you in a couple weeks.